Hitman Codename 47 might be nearly 25 years old at this point, but the very first entry in IO Interactive's legendary series hasn't aged nearly as poorly as you might expect. And since the game is still available on modern storefronts like Steam and GOG, a lot of people still pick it up today, whether out of curiosity, nostalgia, or to finally experience the start of the franchise. But here's the catch. Because it's such an early PC-only title, Hitman Codename 47 has a few technical hurdles on modern systems that you might need to work around to get the best possible experience. So in this video, we're going to take a look at every version, every enhancement, and every tweak available today to make Codename 47 play as well as it possibly can on a modern PC. Let's get into it. Before we start fixing anything, let's quickly talk about where this game came from, because Hitman's origins actually explain a lot of its technical oddities. Hitman Codename 47 was the first game ever made by the Danish studio IO Interactive. They didn't have console development kits at the time, so they built the game exclusively for PC. And more importantly, they decided to create their own custom engine for it, the original Glacier engine. The game didn't even start as a stealth title. IO's initial concept was a run-and-gun shooter, but they quickly grew frustrated with standard death animations and wanted something more dynamic. That's how they ended up implementing ragdoll physics years before the tech became mainstream. This caught the attention of Eidos Interactive, who not only became the publisher but also assigned Jonas Eneroth as the game's executive producer. Eneroth had previously worked on Deus Ex and Thief the Dark Project, two extremely influential stealth games, and he saw the potential of combining Glacier's physics with stealth gameplay. The idea of dragging bodies around to hide them added tension and gave shape to what Hitman would eventually become. And the rest is history. Hitman Codename 47 became the first entry in a franchise that is still going strong today. And while the game's controls and structure are more simplistic compared to the modern trilogy, the fundamentals are all there. Third-person infiltration, disguises, open-ended levels, and multiple approaches to every target. And as an interesting feature of this entry, you can even play the entire game with fixed camera angles, almost like a classic survival horror title. Now let's talk about what you get when you buy Hitman Codename 47 today, either on Steam or GOG. Both versions are essentially the original 2000 release. There are a few differences between both storefronts, but we'll discuss those more later. For now, let's see how the 2000 release holds up today. Back in 2000, the game supported Direct3D 7, OpenGL, and 3dFX Glide. Today, OpenGL still works perfectly fine. Direct3D works, but depending on the system, you may be unable to enable VSync or limit the frame rate, and Glide obviously doesn't work natively on modern GPUs. On my system, both OpenGL and Direct3D ran without any major game-breaking issues. My monitor is 60Hz, and Direct3D respected VSync correctly, so the game stayed locked at 60 FPS. But if the game runs above 60 FPS, and this can easily happen on modern machines, you will instantly run into problems. The camera shakes constantly, guns float weirdly in mid-air, and physics become unstable. So if Direct3D refuses to stay locked at 60 FPS, your best option is to switch to OpenGL, which should limit the frame rate properly. Aside from video APIs, Codename 47 has some strict limitations. The maximum resolution it supports is 1600 by 1200, and it only supports 4:3 aspect ratios. The UI does not scale, so at high resolutions it becomes extremely small. Anti-aliasing can only be enabled with Direct3D but does nothing on modern hardware. Vertex lighting looks broken. Most of the game's areas look darker than intended, so that should be turned off. Palette compression and texture compression options also appear to do nothing today. And lastly, the biggest drawback of the vanilla experience. The draw distance is extremely short. The fog starts very near to the camera, and distant geometry is constantly hidden. Now let's talk about Steam versus GOG. Both stores ship the same core game, but GOG includes two extra things. The first is that GOG bundles N-Glide, a wrapper designed to emulate 3DFX Glide on modern hardware. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work correctly with Hitman Codename 47. For me, the result was always a black screen with audio running in the background. So Glide is basically unusable on the GOG version unless you replace the wrapper manually. The GOG version also appears to include a modified DLL that upscales the game to your desktop resolution using integer scaling and ensures Direct3D is properly locked to 60 FPS. This is actually helpful. Integer scaling makes low resolutions look much sharper, and the stable 60 FPS cap prevents the game's physics and camera from breaking. So out of the box, GOG is the more convenient option. Now let's get to the actual improvements, the things that really enhance Codename 47 on modern PCs. The first one is dgVoodoo, an extremely powerful wrapper that supports old Glide, Direct3D, and DirectDraw games. It converts them into modern DirectX 11 or 12 calls, which gives us several benefits. Unlike nGlide, dgVoodoo's Glide support works with Hitman. I was expecting to see big differences compared to Direct3D or OpenGL, but the results were interesting. The logo intro sequences, which are 3D rendered, show some slight differences. But in-game, Glide looks almost identical to Direct3D and OpenGL. The only noticeable in-game differences are color banding, because Glide originally used 16-bit color depth, slightly longer geometry draw distance, and fog that starts closer to the camera. Nothing game-changing, but still interesting to see. You can also use dgVoodoo with Direct3D, and this is where dgVoodoo becomes extremely useful. On both Direct3D and Glide modes, dgVoodoo can correctly limit the frame rate by using a modern API, override the game's internal resolution to render at much higher resolutions than 1600 by 1200, and preserve the UI size when increasing the resolution. This is huge. For it to work, you need to set the in-game resolution to something like 640 by 480 and override it on dgVoodoo. This means that you can play Hitman at 4K, for example, while keeping the UI properly sized, something the vanilla game cannot do at all. But there's a drawback. UI textures show scaling artifacts when using dgVoodoo to increase the resolution. Text becomes a bit distorted, which can make some menus harder to read. So it's a trade-off, higher resolution and proper UI size at the cost of UI clarity. The other major improvement is the Widescreen Fix mod. This mod adds 16:9 resolution support with proper UI placement and even adjustable draw distance, but it also has limitations. The maximum resolution the game supports with it becomes 1920 by 1080, and while most of the UI keeps the proper shapes and placement, briefing videos and the map screen become distorted. Also, increasing the draw distance too much causes performance issues even on modern hardware. And the UI still does not scale, so at 1080p it's fairly small. A good draw distance value should be no higher than 6.5. Higher values begin introducing engine-level slowdowns and potentially crashes. Now this is where things get interesting. You can actually combine both enhancements. I recommend the following setup. Set the widescreen fix to 1280 by 720 and increase the draw distance to 6.5. Then use dgVoodoo to override that to your monitor's resolution, like 1440p or 4K. This gives you proper widescreen, higher resolution, and UI that stays reasonably sized. But again, this reintroduces the UI scaling artifacts, since dgVoodoo is doing the upscaling. Still, for many players, this is the best overall setup, especially if you're optimizing for visual clarity and widescreen presentation. So, after testing every version, every mode, and every enhancement, what is the definitive way to play Hitman Codename 47 in 2025? Well, unfortunately, there isn't a single perfect version. It really depends on what you want out of the experience. If you want the absolute highest resolution and proper widescreen, use Widescreen Fix combined with dgVoodoo, set the mod to 720p, and upscale through dgVoodoo to 4K or whatever resolution you want. This gives you the sharpest image and functional widescreen, with the downside of some UI scaling artifacts. If you want widescreen but want to avoid scaling issues, use Widescreen Fix alone, stick to 1080p or lower, and accept the smaller UI. This avoids dgVoodoo's UI distortion but limits you to 1080p. If you want a more authentic vintage look, just play the Steam or GOG version unmodded at 640 by 480. It's sharp, stable, and closer to how the game originally looked. GOG is especially convenient thanks to its built-in integer scaling and 60 FPS fixes, but Steam on OpenGL works perfectly fine as well, and you should be able to set up integer scaling through your GPU's driver. Hitman Codename 47 is a unique game with messy old-school PC quirks, but with the right tweaks, it becomes surprisingly playable even today, and a fascinating look at how IO Interactive's iconic franchise began. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe for more. I recently created a Discord server for the channel, so we can talk more about the golden age of gaming. The invite is in the description. Feel free to join in. You can also follow me on X and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.